This is the first of 5 true West Virginia hauntings. Tonight, we start with a place where voices still echo through locked doors. Welcome to the Black Hour Stories. You came here for a real West Virginia haunting, and that's exactly what you're about to get. This first tale takes us inside one of the state's most feared places, where something old still moves in the dark, long after the last patient left. The old Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum sat heavy against the sky, its stone wings stretching so far that even locals swore it felt like the building was watching them. People said the place was wrong from the start. Too many rooms, too many broken lives, too many stories brushed under the floorboards. Anyone who walked past the gates could almost feel a cold hand slide across their spine. Most folks in Weston stayed clear of it after sunset. But once in a while, someone drifted close enough to hear something inside. A scrape, a whisper, a cry that didn't match any voice they knew. They told themselves the wind could mimic strange sounds through a long stone hallway. They said the building settled at night, but deep down they knew better. One fall evening, a night watchman named Cole took a temporary job guarding the grounds. He didn't believe the stories. He had worked in noisy factories and quiet cemeteries. Nothing scared him much. So when he was told the asylum needed someone to patrol the outer halls, he shrugged and signed the papers. Easy money, he thought. But the first night changed him. The halls were colder inside than they should have been. Not winter cold, not normal cold. This had a bite to it, like the building wanted to sink its teeth into him. His flashlight beam cut across peeling paint, rusted gurneys, and old doors with names scratched into them. Some scratches went deep, like whoever carved them had been desperate and strong. A soft tap echoed from the far end of the hallway. Just one, then another, then a slow, dragging sound. Cole froze. He listened hard. The sound stopped, as if something behind the darkness was holding its breath and waiting for him to move. He took one step, then another. His boots felt too loud on the dirty floor. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. The dragging sound started again, closer now, slow, heavy, scraping along the old stone tile. A door halfway down the hall stood slightly open. He didn't remember leaving it that way. He pushed it with his boot, and the hinges groaned like something waking up after a long sleep. The smell hit him then, old medicine, stale blankets, and something else, something sour and rotten, like breath that hadn't touched living lungs in 100 years. Inside the room he saw only shadows. But one shadow moved. Cole backed away, heart pounding. His flashlight flickered, then steadied. When the beam lit the far corner, he saw a faint figure crouched low, not sitting, not standing, crouched. Its limbs were bent in ways they shouldn't be. Its head hung to the side, as if the neck had snapped long ago. Then it straightened. The figure rose slowly, joints popping. A thin shape, tall and stretched, wrapped in the faint outline of old hospital cloth. Its eyes caught the light, not glowing, not shining, just reflecting like whetstones. Cole stumbled into the hall. The figure stepped forward with a stiff, unnatural hitch, dragging one foot like it was pinned to the past. The dragging sound from earlier, the same one the locals whispered about. He ran. The halls seemed longer now, twisting in ways he didn't remember. Every turn led him back to the same doorway. Every doorway felt like it was breathing. Behind him, the dragging grew louder, faster, as though the thing had learned how to chase. When he finally reached the front steps, he burst into the cold night air. He didn't stop running until he reached the far side of town. He quit the job by sunrise. He never told the full story, but he warned people that the asylum didn't rest. Something inside moved from room to room, waiting for the next set of footsteps. And every night since, locals still hear that slow, dragging step behind the stone walls. A sound that always seems to come a little closer. That was story 1 of 5. The halls of the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum are quiet now, but some say the dragging never truly stopped. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments. And if this story kept you with us, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next haunting. Tonight's story takes you to an old mountain road where travelers still see a woman in white waving for help. They say she never makes it across. Welcome to the Black Hour Stories. This is story 2 of 5, and it comes from a lonely stretch of Route 60 near Hawk's Nest. Folks around here whisper about a spirit who walks the cliffside at night, searching for something she lost long ago. The old Midland Trail twisted through the mountains like a long, tired snake. At night, the road felt even tighter, pressed between dark trees and high cliffs. Locals drove it with care, not only because of the sharp turns, but because they knew what sometimes stepped out of the fog. A woman in white. People said she stood on the edge of the overlook, waving for help with both hands. Some drivers stopped, thinking she was hurt. Others sped up, too scared to look her in the eye. But every story ended the same. When they slowed down or pulled over, the woman vanished into thin air. For years, this was just a tale for tourists, until a man named Derek crossed her path. Derek was a delivery driver who worked late runs through the mountains. He didn't believe in ghosts. He didn't believe in anything he couldn't hold in his hands. But one October night, as rain hammered his windshield and the fog rolled low across the road, he learned why people avoided that stretch after dark. His headlights cut across the overlook, and that's when he saw her. A woman in a long white dress, soaked from the rain. She waved her arms, desperate, as if trying to flag down anyone who would look her way. Her bare feet stood inches from the cliff. Derek slowed to a crawl. He rolled down his window and shouted to her, asking if she needed help. She didn't answer. She only lifted her hand and pointed toward the drop below, as though something or someone was waiting there. He parked the truck and stepped out. The rain hit him like needles. The wind dragged cold air against his neck. But he walked toward her. When he reached the edge, she was gone. No sound, no movement. Just the roar of the river far below. He looked over the cliff, expecting to see a shape or torn dress caught on a branch, but the valley was empty. He turned back toward his truck. She stood behind him, not waving now, not crying for help. Just standing, close enough for the rain to run off her dress in steady lines. Her face was pale, but her eyes were dark, bottomless, like she carried the whole night inside them. Derek stumbled back. His heel caught a stone, and he nearly slipped over the edge. The woman didn't reach for him. She only stared. Then she opened her mouth. No sound came out. Only a thin stream of water rolling down her chin as if she had been drowning for years. He bolted for the truck. She didn't follow. But the moment he slammed the door shut, the passenger side window fogged from the inside. Words appeared, traced by an unseeing finger. "Help me find him. Derek tore down the mountain road, engine screaming. But no matter how fast he drove, he saw her in the rearview mirror standing in the middle of the road, pointing toward the valley, rain pouring straight through her. The next day, he asked a local about her. The man nodded slowly and said he knew the story. Long ago, a woman and her husband drove the cliffside in a storm, much like the one Derek survived. Their car went over the edge. The husband's body was recovered. Hers never was. They say she never stopped looking. To this day, drivers on Route 60 still see a woman waving for help. And those who stop those who get too close hear dripping water long after they've left the mountain. Some claim if you listen hard enough, you can hear her call a name carried away by the river that took her. That was story 2 of 5. If you ever drive that mountain road at night, keep your eyes on the fog. Some travelers say she's still searching for the one she lost. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments. And if this haunt made you look twice at the dark, don't forget to like and subscribe for the next tale. Tonight's story takes you inside a schoolhouse that burned more than a century ago. Some say the children left. Others say their shadows never did. Welcome to the Black Hour Stories. This is story 3 of 5, and it leads us to the ruins near the old Silver Run Woods. Folks around here still talk about the school that caught fire and the strange shapes people see moving through the trees at dusk. The old Silver Run School had been gone for generations, but the clearing where it once stood still felt wrong. The grass never grew quite right. Trees leaned away as if pushed by a memory they wanted no part of. Every local kid dared each other to step into the clearing at sunset, though most never did. They said you could hear the children inside the wind, running, coughing, calling for a door that never opened again. The fire happened long ago. No one knew exactly how it started. Some blamed a stove, others blamed a lantern. But everyone agreed on one thing: not every child made it out. Most families left the area after that. The woods grew thick around the empty foundation. Time buried the stones, but the smell of smoke never fully left. One spring evening, a hiker named Marla wandered off a nearby trail. She wasn't looking for anything haunted. She just wanted a quiet walk. The woods were calm, with birds calling through the branches and soft dirt under her boots. She followed a narrow path until the trees suddenly opened into a wide, flat space. The clearing felt colder than the rest of the forest. Marla didn't know the history. She only knew the air seemed trapped, like it remembered something it didn't want to share. She stepped closer to the old foundation stones and brushed away the leaves. Under the dirt, she saw scorch marks etched into the rock. A faint sound drifted across the clearing. At first she thought it was the wind brushing through the grass. But the longer she listened, the more it took shape. Light footsteps, fast, too light for any adult. The hurried shuffle of children running across a wooden floor that no longer existed. Marla turned slowly, nothing there. The woods stood still. Yet the footsteps circled her, weaving through the clearing in a pattern that felt familiar, like children running lines they had practiced for years. Then a small laugh echoed behind her. Not cheerful, not cruel, just tired. A thin voice that had been holding on to the same moment for far too long. She stepped back toward the tree line. The air thickened, heavy with the smell of burnt wood. Smoke rolled through her memory, even though she knew the forest around her was perfectly green. Her eyes watered, her throat tightened. She felt heat on her face, as if flames were rising around her feet. The footsteps stopped. Marla turned, unsure why she did, and saw a child's outline standing near the remains of the front steps. A faint shape, light as fog, no features, no color. Just a small form glowing with weak, warm light. A second shape appeared beside it. Then a third. Their heads were tilted, as if waiting for instructions. As if class was about to begin again. One of them lifted an arm and pointed toward Marla, not asking for help, not warning her, just pointing. The smell of smoke grew stronger. A soft crackling filled the air, and Marla realized she wasn't breathing right. She stumbled backward and nearly tripped. The children didn't move. They only watched her with those hollow waiting shapes. Then a high, sharp sound tore through the clearing, a scream so full of fear that Marla's knees buckled. It echoed through the trees, bounced off the rocks, and faded into a small whimper. A child's final breath from a fire that never let go. Marla ran. Branches scraped her arms. Roots caught her feet. But she kept going until she burst onto the main trail. When she turned back, the clearing looked normal again. Quiet, empty, smoke-free. Later, when she learned the story of the fire, she understood why the clearing felt alive. The children never found the door that day, and they still hadn't found it now. Sometimes hikers say they see faces in the tree line at dusk, small, pale shapes watching from behind the branches. They don't speak, they don't move. They just wait for someone to open a door that burned away long ago. That was story 3 of 5. The ruins of Silver Run still sit under the trees, and folks say the footsteps return every spring. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments. And if the shadows in this tale stayed with you, be sure to like and subscribe before we head to the next haunting. Tonight's story takes you to the rail line at Silver Run, where travelers still see a woman searching for someone who never came home. Welcome to the Black Hour Stories. This is story 4 of 5, a tale tied to the old Silver Run Tunnel. Locals say a spirit walks the tracks at night, holding a lantern that never burns out. She's been waiting more than 100 years. The Silver Run Tunnel sat deep in the hills, a long stone passage carved through a ridge before the Civil War. The tracks still ran through it, though trains didn't stop nearby anymore. The tunnel always felt colder than the land around it, even on warm days. Travelers said they could feel a chill slide through them the moment they stepped inside. For generations, people talked about a ghostly woman who drifted along the rails. Sometimes she stood near the entrance. Sometimes she appeared inside the tunnel, holding a pale, dim light. Everyone agreed on one thing. She seemed to be waiting. A freight inspector named Lewis found that out the hard way. Lewis had worked the line for years. He didn't mind being alone in the dark, and he didn't mind the long shifts. One late October evening, he was sent to check a stretch of track just past the tunnel entrance. The sun had already slipped behind the hills, and a heavy fog crept low around the ties. He walked with a steady pace, lantern in hand. The only sounds were the faint hum of distant traffic and the metallic ring of his boots on the rail. When he reached the mouth of the tunnel, his lantern flickered, though the wind was still. He stepped inside. The temperature dropped so fast it felt like he had stepped into ice water. His breath turned white, drifting into the dark. The air carried a sharp old smell coal smoke that should have been gone a lifetime ago. Halfway through the tunnel, he heard footsteps behind him. Light, but quick. Not in a hurry, just keeping pace. He turned, holding his lantern high. No one there. Only the curve of the tunnel and the deep black that swallowed everything past 10 feet. He kept walking, telling himself the echo played tricks on him. That's when he saw the glow. A faint white light at the far end of the tunnel. It bobbed slightly, like someone carried it in their hand. He squinted. Someone was there. A woman. Lewis raised his lantern to signal that he was coming through. The woman didn't move. She just held her little light and watched him. As he got closer, he saw that her dress was old-fashioned, long and pale. Her hair hung straight, soaked with a shine that looked like dew. Her face, he couldn't make out any features, but he felt eyes on him, heavy, sad, searching. He stopped several yards away. The woman lifted her arm and pointed behind him. Lewis turned slowly, unsure what he'd find. As he did, the tunnel filled with the sound of a train roaring toward them. But he knew no train was scheduled. He knew the line was locked for inspection. He pressed against the wall. The rails shook beneath his boots. Wind blasted through the tunnel, hot and fast, carrying the smell of burning coal. A whistle screamed a long, sharp cry that rattled the stone. But no train appeared. The sound tore through the tunnel and vanished in a heartbeat. The rails stilled. The wind died. Silence returned. Lewis turned back to the woman. She stood inches from him now. Her lantern glowed weakly, but enough for him to see her face. It wasn't twisted or broken. It wasn't angry. It was tired. A grief carved deep. Her lips moved like she was speaking, but no sound reached him. She lifted her hand again, pointing this time to the rail ties beside him. He looked down and saw old, dried scratches carved into the wood initials maybe, or a date. A mark made by someone who never made it out alive. When he looked back up, she was fading, as if pulled backward by the dark. Her lantern light shrank to a pinprick, then vanished entirely. Lewis rushed out of the tunnel, heart pounding so hard his vision blurred. When he reached the open air, the fog felt warm compared to the cold inside. Later, an older worker explained the legend. A young woman once waited at that tunnel for her fiancé, a rail hand who died in a wreck on the line. She didn't know he was gone. She waited through one night, then another. They found her collapsed near the entrance. They said her spirit still waits, hoping for his return. And when a train echoes through the hills at dusk, some swear they see her lantern swing in the dark. That was story 4 of 5. The Silver Run Tunnel still holds its chill, and some nights the lantern appears near the tracks. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, be sure to like and subscribe before we move on to our final haunting. Our final story takes you to the old Lake Shawnee Amusement Park. The rides are gone, but something there still moves in circles when no wind blows. Welcome to the Black Hour Stories. This is story 5 of 5. Tonight we end our journey at Lake Shawnee, a place built on tragedy and soaked in quiet dread. Folks say the land never wanted the park, and the park never stopped taking from anyone who stepped inside. At the edge of Mercer County, where tall grass sways over old farmland, the remains of Lake Shawnee Amusement Park sit silent. Rusted swings hang crooked in the dirt. The Ferris wheel stands frozen, half-eaten by vines. And the old pond lies still as black glass. Locals say the land remembers everything that happened there, long before the park was built, long before the screams belonged to children. The land carried a dark history, an old frontier fight that ended in blood. People whispered that the ground never healed from it. When the amusement park opened in the 1920s, small accidents began almost at once. A girl drowned in the pond. A boy was crushed by a truck near the swings. Another child fell from the wheel. Year after year, the tragedies added up until the owners finally shut the gates. But some said the laughter never left, and some said the cries didn't either. One fall evening, a documentary photographer named Lila visited the ruins. She wanted pictures of abandoned places, rust, decay, nature reclaiming the past. She thought Lake Shawnee would be quiet, maybe even peaceful. She didn't know the stories. She didn't know what waited inside the old fence line. The moment she stepped through the gate, she felt watched. Not from one direction, from every side. The air was still, but the grass whispered like feet moved through it just out of sight. She walked toward the swings. Chains rattled in the windless air. Not hard, just a light jingle, like someone small had brushed past them. She raised her camera. As she snapped the first photo, a soft squeak sounded behind her. She turned quickly. One swing was moving. Not wildly, not fast. Just a slow back and forth, like a child warming up to a higher ride. The chains groaned in a steady rhythm forward, back, forward, back, yet the ground beneath the seat showed no footprints. No drag marks, nothing. Lila stepped closer. The swing slowed, the chains stilled. The air grew colder. Then a reflection flashed across the metal seat. For a moment, she saw a pale outline of a little girl sitting there, legs dangling, dress soaked from the pond. When Lila blinked, the seat was empty again. She backed away, breath hitching. She headed toward the Ferris wheel, hoping distance might break whatever held onto the swings. But the wheel had its own secrets. As she walked around the frame, she heard a soft metal groan high above her. The top car shifted. A long, slow creak echoed across the park. Then the wheel turned just one notch, like someone heavy had leaned their weight against the structure. Lila knew the air was still. She knew no wind pushed it. Yet the wheel turned again, another notch downward, steady as a heartbeat. She stepped back until her shoulders hit a tree. A cold feeling rolled through her chest. Not fear, not yet. Something sad, something old. As if the land itself was remembering a moment it couldn't let go. She took one last picture, but the flash caught something at the base of the wheel. A shadow, small, not hers, not an adult's. A child-sized figure, crouched behind the metal supports. When the light faded, the shadow was gone. Lila turned to leave. She moved fast toward the pond, the only open path back to the gate. The water looked black and heavy, catching the sky like a mirror. She hated looking at it. Something about it felt too quiet. Then the surface rippled. First once, then twice. Then a series of soft circles spread outward, as if small hands had just broken through from below. A gurgling sound rose from the center, low and wet. Bubbles surfaced. Something pale drifted just under the waterline. Lila ran. She didn't stop until she reached her car. When she looked back, the swings were moving again. Not one this time. All of them. Later, when she showed the photos to a local historian, he pointed out something she hadn't seen. In the picture of the swing, behind the empty seat, there was a faint smudge, shaped like a child's face. In the Ferris wheel photo, the top car wasn't empty. It held a small blurry shape, leaning forward as if looking down at her. He told her the stories she never knew. The children who died there. The land that was cursed long before the park opened. The reason the area still feels heavy at dusk. And he told her this. The park may be abandoned, but the children never truly left. They play on swings that move on their own. They ride a wheel that still turns in the dead of night. They whisper through the tall grass, waiting for someone new to step inside the old fence. That was story 5 of 5. Lake Shawnee still sits in silence, but the swings sometimes move when no one is near. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments. And if these hauntings kept you with us tonight, make sure to like and subscribe for more from the Black Hour Stories.